Right, and Khayelihle Khumalo joins us now in the studio to talk about the proceedings earlier on. Khayelihle, so we saw the AU chair speak, as I mentioned in the introduction. You said that he called upon and pressed upon the PAP members to work on the image of the PAP. To what specifically was he referring?
So he was very clear about the very embarrassing scenes. In fact, saying that, they should be really representing the continent very well, especially because these are very 5 MPs from the member states that are selected. So he said they should be the cream of the crop, really. But also talking about the seriousness, on social media, how everybody was talking about these very terrible scenes, saying it should be a moment really to revitalize this institution, saying it should be a process of renewal, especially because tomorrow is going to be a very important day for the members of the PAP as they'll be electing the new leadership, the president, the vice presidents from the different regions. But something, once again, that is still concerning, Tsepiso, is around that rotation, which is, of course, a bone of contention. A lot of them really, there's no coherence or just a consensus in terms of understanding the importance of that concept.
And we spoke about that. So what is the process that is likely to unfold then to reach consensus?
So it's going to be a very tough one, especially because when we left the session now, the caucuses from the different bureaus from Southern Africa and North Africa, they were meeting really to try and get the modalities in place, but also there was a very thorough presentation that was done behind closed door by, of course, the AU Legal Council to try and facilitate the process. Something that is still concerning is, of course, the protocol that is very vital in terms of making sure that they enable the rotation to be respected. Not so many member states have ratified that protocol. Once again, the AU Commission Chair, Moussa Faki Mahamat, raised that particular concern, but really imploring the MPs to give North Africa and the Southern Africa a chance. And he really made an example about his position that he's from Chad. So once he leaves office, another region away from Central Africa will have an opportunity to get their candidates also at the helm of this powerful position.
And I mean, that is something that the African Union itself, or at least tries very hard to stick to, that issue of rotation. But beyond rotation, as you mentioned, there are 5 regional candidates here who surely they can't just be competing on the principle of rotation. They are putting something to the table. What are they offering in this change, this revitalization that Faki Mahamat is calling for? What is each candidate saying is the one that makes them stand out? So
quite a number of issues, and a lot of them say they've been lobbying, they've been traveling from capital to so many cities in the continent and speaking to the member states to understand how they are planning to reposition this particular parliament. I mean, for example, you do have Albino Aboj from South Sudan, and a very interesting background. This is a former child soldier and having started in the US. So he talks about so many weaknesses in terms of how this parliament has not been able to fulfill its mandate and how he plans to champion a new Pan-African parliament. But obviously, I mean, it's always a very tough one for the consensus generally to be reached in the continent, but also in Malawi as well. You do have Mr. Chihana. He's talking about a number of issues as well in terms of the reforms, in terms of making sure that this parliament, the members really don't come to Johannesburg and not really deal with the core issues. So many issues around climate change, so many issues around economic integration. So someone really has not been very clear, but who has been endorsed by the Southern African Bloc will have to be the Zimbabwean Senate, of course, that Senate Chirumbira. But once again, when you just hear from the campaign manager, he spoke about making sure that this parliament should resonate with the citizens of the continent, and really promising not just to represent Southern Africa, but the interest of the continent.
And I think, Khayelihle, therein lies the rub, right, in terms of whomever you choose as the Pan-African Parliament President will have to deal with all of these cross-cutting issues. Migration is a major concern for Africa at the moment. Many of its citizens trying to flee across the European channels, and that is brought on by issues like climate change, lack of economic prosperity, or integration and reforms. There are political reforms that are forcing people to flee and seek asylum, whether it's within the continent or outside. So what will be the final decision-making nail on the coffin, so to speak, as you said, they're still ironing out the process, but what are the MPs themselves saying at today's session about ultimately the qualities that they're looking for?
Well, certainly, Tsepiso, and obviously it's a myriad of challenges facing the continent. And just, a couple of days or so, we saw the AU Commission Chair, Moussa Faki Mahamat, denouncing those very horrific scenes that we saw in Morocco, where scores of Africans really died when they were trying to go and, just head to Spain. So really quite a number of issues, especially because when you look at the structures of this particular parliament, they have quite a number of committees, and one of the issues is around immigration, is around issue of education, is around human rights and the culture. So it's a plethora really of issues. So whoever is going to emerge as a new leader will have to try and really look down at the very key issues, and most importantly, the issue around food security as well. It's another issue that is being discussed by a number of MPs, but a lot of them really, they do talk about the fact that, this parliament should be strengthened and be well capacitated in terms of making sure that they tackle all these priorities that are facing the continent.
Right. So let's just anticipate what's on the agenda for tomorrow.
So it's going to be crunch time tomorrow. So that's when the members of parliament will have an opportunity to elect the new leadership. But it remains to be seen whether are we going to see the history repeating itself, because the very contentious issue, once again, around rotation, there's no really clear telling as to whether there's a very agreement, whether they're on the same page in terms of making sure that they will all be, just reaching that particular step. But a lot of them really, there was a soul-searching moment when they were listening to the AU chairperson talking about the fact that, it's high time that they rise to the occasion and also be able to, just tackle all these main issues that they face.
So no doubt a lot of horse trading behind the scenes at the moment as we speak. Thanks a lot for that, Khayelihle Khumalo, speaking about events at the Pan-African Parliament in Midrand earlier on today, as he mentioned that it was delayed at the start due to load shedding.